We are here with...
I'm Peter Brimelow, and I run the editor of VDARE.com.
Nice. And I've been following your works for many, many years. We're talking about basically demographic, which is really replacement. It's not diversity. Quick summary about where you're from and how it's changed and where you are now and what you're experiencing.
Well, I'm from the north of England, and I came to the US in 1970 to go to the business school at Stanford. And I've basically been in North America ever since then. I spent about almost 10 years in Canada, and then I came back to the US to work actually for a US senator. And then I went back into financial journalism, and I worked for Fortune and Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. Latterly, I did a column for CBS Market Watch. Well, it used to be CBS Market Watch. It's now just Market Watch. It's owned by Dow Jones on very technical financial issues.
Oh, really? I've been covering the financial markets on my YouTube channel for about 10, 11 years. The bullish on the NASDAQ for 10 years. We've talked about precious metals. We've talked about the bond markets, real estate, and there's a lot of con men in the financial system. And I'm sure you really know about that. Well, switching gears, and where you reside in West Virginia?
We now live in West Virginia, yes. I lived in northern Connecticut for 30 years.
Oh, yeah, I heard that place has gotten touched a lot and over the years. And I'm actually, in case if you don't know, we're from Las Vegas, and believe it or not, it ranks among the lowest percentage of whites in an interior part of the country. It's literally has changed due to a number of factors, casinos, construction, perhaps California has played a role, and certainly it has played a role in the voting habits. The question is, where are we going? I'm going to tell people, is Vegas going to be 0% you guys? And ironic how Vegas still glorifies European culture in the casinos.
That's so funny, yeah, that's funny. When I started VDARE, it was after we were all purged from National Review in the late 90s because Buckley decided he wanted to throw in his lot with the GOP establishment, which didn't want to talk about immigration. And so I started VDARE, and I think it was Christmas Eve of 1999 when we went live. And I focused just on the immigration issue. It was really a single issue website. Every once in a while I get into line extension stuff. One of my rules of thumb was if it's something that National Review under its new management wouldn't run, then I'm interested in running it. And so we will write about the race and IQ issue and so on. Because that obviously is it's an issue in immigration. What kind of people are you importing?
Absolutely, you have every right to know, just like what kind of food that goes in your body.
Right.
Why is it wrong to suggest anything? It's okay if you don't want people like me in your neighborhood. I totally get it. It's not like, and there may be some things I may not like about your culture. It's just how it is.
Well, because the thing is, as Powell used to say, numbers are of the essence. It's a question of how many people you bring in. I mean, small numbers of people from unusual places in the world will not have that much impact. It's only when there are enough of them to start altering the society that the problem arises.
Right. The thing is, though, I forgot another thing, which is, I think, a larger factor in the demographic change is the fertility rates. And the fact that along with Europe has these low fertility rates and all this non-European immigration, that's what woke me up to this in 2015 and 16. And I was like, holy, what are we doing to you guys? And nobody ever told me this. Nobody ever told me about these double standards. It was just absolutely just heartbreaking. And I was like, you know what? This is just abuse. This is just corruption. It doesn't matter if I'm part of the group. It just got to stop. And without you guys settling this part of the world, all of us wouldn't be here. That's just a fact.
Yeah, the problem is, this is why we have to go to immigration moratorium to sort this out. I don't think that low fertility rates per se are a problem for white Americans, because it's like, they invest more in the individual children. It's just a way of handling how you pass culture and human capital on to the next generation. You have a small number of children, spend a lot more money on them. But it becomes a problem if you're importing people who have high fertility.
That's what I was going to tell you, yeah.
So all problems in the end come down to...
And kids out of wedlock, that's another thing, because the family is very, very important. Okay, so before we go, what can people do to hit the brakes and finally make sure that we doesn't go under 50%, or do you suggest we break up the country? Because I've thought about that many, many times.
You know, we're a 501c3 educational foundation, so we don't take explicit stands on partisan politics. But we do, and have been from the very start, advocate an immigration moratorium, which means no net immigration. It doesn't mean no immigration at all. You've got about 200,000 to 300,000 people.
Yes.
And so you could, 200,000 to 300,000 people came in every year. You could take care of needed, hardship cases and needed skills if there were, and that kind of thing. And that's an issue which has to get into politics. And the really crazy thing is that Trump did actually enact a de facto moratorium in 2020 under the guise of.
I celebrated.
It's just astonishing. But he didn't campaign on it. He didn't say if we elect a Democrat president, he will reverse this moratorium and start bringing people in to compete with him, beat down living standards and everything else. So it's extraordinary.
Well, I will say this: under Obama, net immigration, according to the CIS, was less than Bush, and under Trump, it was less than Obama.
Right.
So, but we have to see the numbers for this guy. And that's one of the things. I'm sure it's higher, but
quite obviously the illegal immigration is out of control. And we can see that under Trump, the legal this is getting very awfully technical science, but the immigrant workforce population actually fell consecutively for about 15 months, which it hasn't done for many years. So he was actually reducing the immigrant workforce population.
These young European Americans that are sitting in their parents' basement, they can't find work.
Well, of course, he made it possible for them to find work. And wages particularly for lower skilled workers did start to increase under Trump, but of course COVID smashed all that.
And they may not be taking my job, but customer service, the people you live with, all of that makes a big difference. And in some cases in the casinos, you have 60-70% of workers that are foreign born. Even dealers and customer service, this, not just cleaning and house cleaning, but of course, before we go, what is your remark that when people say, oh, well, you guys can't do certain jobs, you can't do nursing, you can't do all that? What do you say about that?
I mean, the part of the country I live in, West Virginia, which is overwhelmingly white, all these jobs are done by native-born Americans. And it's much easier to go to the emergency room there. It's very straightforward. They're not shooting each other up. There's no lines. They're not using the emergency room as a term.
Yes.
So the answer, of course, Americans can do these jobs, particularly if they're paid enough.